So, welcome back, everyone. And this is episode 36 of Ethics TV. My name's Jonathan. And the gentleman I'm speaking to today, Stephen, has his bio in the description, so you can read all about him. Extraordinarily impressive chap. What's keeping you busy? What's keeping you excited? And what are you up to right now?
Really and truly is the explosion of how AI is being managed in an ethical perspective. And what I mean by that is, well, every time you turn around, some kind of new video, some kind of new LLM, some kind of explosion. But then we're excited on this side, and then a week later, we're excited about something else. And everything is now coming out. This is going to break the internet. This is going to break this. Well, somehow or another, we're forgetting about the people involved that we're leaving. The workforce people who are not exactly as excited as us AI nerds are. And so what I'm trying to do is kind of slow things down. Let's put some humanity back in this. And what really gets me going is like last February, Pope Francis signed this document, which Pope Leo announced the other day, which brings humanity back to AI. Its first address to the cardinals, specifically was about artificial intelligence and the humanity of it. So that kind of gave me a little bit of credence to saying, hey, we're going to, not everything can be exciting and fast. Well, the Claude is beating Copilot, and Copilot is beating ChatGPT, and this is just going to break everything. What about the 5-year-old kid who doesn't really care?
Mm.
Because they're playing Roblox on the phone,
Yeah,
Roblox on the phone.
yeah,
So that is what I'm really and truly focused on, and it takes a lot of people to bring that to focus.
yeah.
To bring that into the attention span that we need to slow this down because everybody is, very, very hungry for the latest thing. AI is going to wipe out Hollywood. AI is going to change the music industry. Well, let's start with the workforce. Let's start with the kids, right? Because if you remember, if you know, Generation Beta is every child born after January 1st, 2025. They're going to come. They're in a world that they'll never not know. They'll never know a day without AI.
Mhm.
So what are we building so fast for them to understand?
Yeah. And what,
So
why do you think, is that something that you feel, why would it be so novel for people like you and I to feel that there is a requirement to instill humanity back into this tech? Why is it that has been an afterthought by the large tech platforms? Why have they missed the truth of it all, that we are actually humans on Earth that need to be prioritized?
for that, I really have a distinct answer. We came through the transition. I remember rotary phones, 3 channel television. I remember when the internet exploded. I remember Y2K. I remember, the AS4. I remember all that stuff. I remember when all the flip phones were like the Star Trek communicator. I remember the Nokia. I remember the Blackberries. And so, reason why we're concerned is because we saw the transition. We lived through the transition. So this generation now has not lived through any transition. Their transition is going to come 20 years from now.
Mm.
They're going to remember when ChatGPT came out and all these other things. We remember cell phones.
Yeah.
So the cell phones were in a big bag. We
Yeah.
remember. So that is why we remember these things.
Yeah.
And so their transition is going to come maybe if GPT came out November of 2022, if that's their starting point. So November of what, 20 years from now?
Yeah.
So that is going to be they're going to remember back 20 years.
Yeah, and so
So I
and the
think,
tech companies seem to be playing fast and loose sometimes the almost a deprioritization of humanity, and a prioritization of shareholder return only at whatever expense. I mean, Sam Altman from OpenAI said that it's possible that OpenAI's ChatGPT ends the world, but there'll be a lot of company value created in the meantime, which I'm hoping he was joking or being facetious about. But do you feel
He
that there's
wasn't.
some
He
kind?
was he was not being facetious at all.
Yeah.
He was not being facetious at all. It was
Hmm.
a precursor wrapped in humor,
Hmm.
right? But and so the best way to make somebody accept something is to tell the truth wrapped in, put it in their face in a method that they don't believe it.
Hmm. Yeah, you can
So
normalize it. You can normalize things through humor that have a blatant. I mean, I must admit, I used to be more pessimistic than I am nowadays. I've done a lot of yoga, very much in recent times, and I've very much been connecting with my more spiritual understanding of things. And I feel that my take used to be that there's a proper existential threat going on. And my take now is that, firstly, I believe that nature will find a way, and I think that
right.
there's a beauty of the universe in how it unfolds, and so I'm kind of more philosophical about it now. What's your view? Are you an optimist, pessimist, realist? What's your view?
Okay, so I'm an AI pessimissologist.
Oh, nice.
I'm a pessimissologist. And what that means is I study all facets of pessimism when it comes to AI. And so, believe me, I made that up, and I didn't just make that up. I was going to change my LinkedIn bio to say professional pessimissologist. And so people will say, what does that mean? I'll say, so my core belief is one day there's going to be a singularity.
Mhm.
One day, in whatever future holds at the current rate, there's going to be a singularity
Mhm.
where AI is going to somehow or another want to mate with us. And there's going to be this moment where we're going to have to decide what is the ethical boundaries of it.
Mhm.
And that ethical boundary is going to verge on the spiritual side, right? Because spirituality is what drives, people don't believe this, but I firmly believe spirituality is what drives mankind. A firm belief in something other than yourself is spirituality.
Yeah, well,
If
I
you
mean,
believe it,
I fundamentally believe that to be true, not least the fact that there's three differences between humans and animals. One is the awareness
right,
of our own mortality. The other is our awareness that we need to be socially fit. And the third is our
right,
awareness of something other. And so,
the
yeah,
other,
I think you're
yes,
right. Interesting that the singularity event would be a spiritual, almost a decision point. I said once on an Ethics TV episode a few weeks ago, maybe, that I do suspect that there is a moment in time where there'll be a kind of a choice between which side you're on. You're either on the side of the non-spiritual machines or the
right.
side of the spiritual humankind. And I do wonder that occasionally.
And see, I think of it like this. So we always talk about, I mean, the rhetoric is about making AI non-biased. I think that's impossible because that is anti-Darwinism.
Hmm.
Darwinism and natural selection is biasness.
Hmm. Yeah.
You choose this over this.
Yeah.
So you can't erase that. And any type of mechanism that is non-biased becomes the alpha of this planet. It's indiscriminate. You
Yeah.
do not fit my profile for what I need, therefore you have to be destroyed.
Yeah.
You're consuming resources that I need, and I don't have that view that I might need you for another purpose. I need this resource at this particular moment.
Hmm.
And so there comes this moment of humanity that has to have a spiritual context because we are spiritual beings. And what I mean by that is from the time we started looking up to the stars, we recognized there was something greater than ourselves. And we've been striving for that now.
Yeah.
We're striving to build a mechanism that's greater than ourselves.
Mm.
We want AI to fast forward how much typing we do. We want AI to help our calendar. We want AI to do my dishes for me. We want AI to build a robot. We're building something greater than ourselves. We are steadily trying to build something greater than ourselves.
Mm.
And we're not trying to build tools as they will have you believe. No, we're not. Because if it was, we'd build a tool like we build, so you don't see flying steam engines. Once the steam engine became adequate, it was adequate.
Right.
Once calculators became calculators, they were adequate.
Yeah.
But with AI, we're constantly trying to build something greater than ourselves. And I think that is a kind of an anti-humanistic approach because
Yes.
you look,
Yes. Mm.
it's a kind of anti-humanistic approach because you're trying to create something that's not human.
Yeah, so there is something in that, isn't there? That that there is a sector of belief that would say that we are created in God's image, and there's another view of that, which is that potentially technologists so wanted a God and were so godless that they created one in their image, and
Right,
all-knowing, all persistent, all prevalent, lives in a cloud, a structure that is something that can be worshipped to and for, that is more tangible than something that's esoteric, that's more
right,
understandable in terms of lines of code. But but on the former position, one would say that that's the opposite of what something that's spiritually absolute is. If you create something that
right,
is that if you cannot create something and then worship something, the thing that is worshipped creates you, and
right.
retrospectively, it's the
Well,
other way around.
the perspective is this. If we create AI to be more than ourselves,
Mm.
to be worshipped, we're creating our enslaver.
It's unarguably true that if you create something
So
that can be worshipped,
we're
yeah.
creating a thing to worship, to enslave us. We're creating our own. So somewhere along the line, somebody said, we may not want to do that. We don't want to create a God. We want to stop somewhere and say, hey, because at that point, we don't control it. Oh, we're
Yes.
going to unplug it. No, you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if it has controls of drones and everything else, you're done for, right? And
Yeah.
so at that point, you are no longer the master grasshopper.
Yeah.
You're done. And so
Yeah.
game over. Game over.
And
So
did you come to this conclusion? I mean, during your massive 27-year career in the 80s and 90s into the 2000s in the US Air Force, was that in your cyber ops role there, and on in from the deployed environments and the garrison and so forth, did you start to consider the enormity of these things from a technological perspective then, or was it after you left the Air Force after 27 years?
I'll give you a story. I worked in a place that we had a room, and in this room, there stood two crays by themselves. I would go in there. I was working a night shift, and I'd go in there and I'd listen to them hum. For a second there, I felt reverence, the power of what they were doing. And this is in the 80s. This is 88. And the power that these things had and the hum is just awesome. It was just awesome. And I would sit there maybe for an hour or two, not all the time, but just to get away. And I would sit there and I would tell myself, one day this thing's going to control the world. I used to tell myself this all the time. So one day these things are going to control the world because I worked on mainframe. I was a mainframer in the Air Force initially, other mainframes, and so I'm looking at huge super systems, right, processing huge amounts of data, and this Cray would process so fast. It had mainframes to slow down the data, and I was like, wow, just this is just phenomenally powerful. And I said, these things are going to take over the world.
Mm.
I said, they already take over the world. I
Mm.
said, the world just doesn't know it. Behind every little thing, there's mainframes. There was a study that came out maybe a year or two ago that 70 something percent of all banking systems on Wall Street are still on mainframes.
Mm.
So, AI is just, to me, just a top layer of a whole deeper ecosystem that's still around. And I tell people, well, why banks? Because just imagine if a Chase Bank or a bank tried to migrate their whole systems to client server from mainframes and they had one glitch and they lost consumer confidence. They'd
Mhm.
fold. They'd fold. And a lot of that software is custom built.
Yeah.
So AI is sitting on top of things. This to me, this is like where the once AI integrates with the core systems that exist, I really think we're just done. We're just just done. And in the Air Force, I saw a lot of systems that you just go like, wow. And this is the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And so AI has been, if you look at AI has been around since the 50s.
Hmm.
And people don't understand that. This is not new.
Mm.
It's new to the public and the generative part of it, the fun part, making movies and all this other stuff. But the core systems, they've been around for a long time and you don't know where they are. So I think my view of that was that I've been in those environments and watching the world from a different perspective. Like you really don't know what's really out there.
Yeah.
And so, and it's dangerous.
Mm.
It is AI it is potentially catastrophic because it has the potential to just say this particular demographic, I'm not going to put a part of my algorithm.
Yeah.
And so my viewpoint on that is there has to be, and like we talked earlier, has to be some kind of spiritual, humanistic, like, hey, what are we doing? Why
Yeah.
are we doing this?
Yeah.
What is the end game?
Yeah. And
What are
do
we
you
trying
think
to
so,
get?
so on this point, do you think that there is a way of infiltrating positively the big tech firms and injecting a sense of humanistic understanding, or do you think that the innovation in that area will come from the outside? I mean, obviously, there's things like AI 2030 that we're both part of, and things that are
Yeah,
involved. But I mean, you've been involved in all kinds of different things, and whether it's the WEF or whether it's the US National AI Advisory Committee. Is that the external pressures? Do you think they will be how the big tech firms understand this consequential reality, or do you think that we'll be innovating externally and those options will become more prevalent and the older big tech firms will be more and more out of touch because they haven't understood the humanistic ethics of it all?
I think the tech firms are not being honest, and the reason why I say that is If you turn around and every week they're saying, oh, this is the new release of this, the new release of that. Wait a minute. You didn't create that fast. You've had all this sitting somewhere. And when your competitor released something, you release something. That's what Sam Altman was getting at. And I think, and really and truly, Elon mentioned this a long time ago. I think on Joe Rogan, he said, look, there's some stuff out there that's scary, but you can't just put it on the public just like if there was, just as if there was aliens, right? You just can't release it to the public. If there was a release, and I firmly believe this, that they have releases of stuff. They're releasing in increments because the public would not be able to absorb all that they have. Because and I think they're releasing, Claude has this, ChatGPT has, you don't have people just sitting around droning this stuff unless AI is creating it itself, and that's danger in itself, right? And so I think that the big tech companies are just like squirrels with nuts in a tree. They got a bunch of stuff, and I think personally, in my humble opinion, that they really fooled the people. I think when Altman and all of them went to Congress and said we needed help, I think that was them just doing the FaceTime. They really didn't want it, but they had to sit there and say, hey, we're in front of Congress and we asked for help. And then they went crazy right after that and started releasing everything left, right, and sideways and said, we asked for help. So I think those is personal opinion, don't come after me. But I think if you look at things in retrospect, go to Congress, say we need help, we have all this innovation. Why would you ask for help? If you're just now beginning to innovate something, why do you need help in controlling it?
Yeah, it looks like optics. I mean, it's interesting because I'm wondering whether obviously, I'm the chief executive and founder of an ethical, self-sovereign technology firm that is trying to address some of these issues. But we're tiny in comparison to these multi-billion-dollar funded aspects, and so we are the David to the Goliath. And I wonder whether there's whether that. I mean, from my perspective. And for anyone listening or watching, if you think about what Stephen's been saying about since he and I are of the age of the Commodore 64 and that era. So if we think about if OpenAI is the Commodore 64, I mean, Commodore used to play in the PC market until the early 90s, right? So, and they played all the way through the whole 70s, mid 70s.
It is the most popular selling PC in history.
So it starts with there was the PET in the mid 70s, then went into the 64, and then it went all the way through the 70s, then 80s, and then 90s, and then but if we think about now, you speak to a 20-year-old who wants to buy their first laptop for university, they're not going to look for a Commodore because that's not something that people know of. So if AI follows the same approach in 10, 20 years time, we won't know, the people who are 18 in 20 years, people who are born today, by the time their 18th birthday comes around, they may not even know about ChatGPT. Like the name might not exist.
Exactly.
And so that's interesting as well, right?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Gen Beta, anybody born on January 1st, 2025. What we're doing today, I mean, if you look at the explosion of how AI is being modeled and used, you said 20 years from now. I give it 5 years from now. By the time and one of the models I look at is China. If you look at some of the things that China is doing in their education system, yes, the CCP, but they have social scoring. And your child, I saw the video where the child's sitting in a room and AI is watching the child's behavior.
Hmm.
In the child's behavior, if he's slumping or whatever, that goes against the parent's social scoring. And
Hmm.
that social scoring stops them from getting a job or apartment or a car or something like that. And that's actuality. That's not sci-fi. Are you walking down the street and you walk? It's amazing.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, we say that it's part of of that society, but foreseeably, right? Foreseeably, 5 years from now, that could be the society.
Hmm.
That could be the society. All it would take is some cataclysmic situation to where it had where this I don't know I can't fathom one. Whereas um, there's a monetary crash, global monetary crash, and there needs to be another means of authentication or verification of people
Hmm.
for purchasing.
Yep.
And you know where that goes.
Yeah,
So,
well,
you
actually,
know,
and funnily enough, the vaccine passports, in addition to the want of the federal banks' digital currencies, if you look at the digital currency, the official digital currency of the UK, which is Bank of England trying to roll out the official euro, official US dollar. I mean, what Circle is doing with their USDC, and they're just about to list on the stock exchange with a
right?
multi-billion-dollar market cap, and so. It's if you match together the Chinese social scoring system with the vaccine passports that were just a test run we've just had, you match that with the digital currency, the central bank digital currencies. If you match this together, what you have is a dominion-based oversight, God
Right.
mode in the non-spiritual sense, which I think is what our main concern of this conversation has been. And so
Right.
the mode that is then applied is
Well, America is rolling out the real ID. You have to have real ID.
mm,
And real ID, everybody has to have real ID, and which is basically the same thing.
mhm.
If you're not registered in real ID, you're going to get looked at or ejected.
Yeah, well, you're an alien.
So,
You are then literally, in terms of that legislation, an alien, and therefore,
right.
under especially under the government that's now currently in place at the time of recording in 2025, there is a relatively high likelihood you're going to be put on a plane or a boat, right?
There's a very distinct chance you're gonna get a plane ticket. It's not gonna be the way you want, but you're gonna get a free trip somewhere. You're gonna get a vacation. You're gonna
That's
get
right.
a quick you're gonna get an existential vacation to somewhere south.
Probably where they speak Spanish, exactly. So I mean, I
Where I
think
speak Spanish.
so in
So
in our final closing remarks, what I'd love to know from your side is, I mean, you've got your history has been incredible, your experience is immense, the amount of things you've done, and anyone who wants to look into the Africurity AI side of things, and your LinkedIn, I'm going to include in the bio, and everything's there. But what I wanted you to close on, if you wouldn't mind, is what's your view of the future from a solutions perspective? What do we need to be doing now to build a future that we would want to live in and we want our children's children's to live in?
I think we need to and see how it helps us plant a garden or how it helps us build a water well, not how it helps us map when it's going to rain because I can look outside and do that. I mean, I don't need to know all of that. What I need for it to do is how do we build a more resilient agricultural crop? How do we forecast where rain should be and then create some kind of technology to water some of these areas that are like in the Sudan? How do we keep AI in its place? And I think that is the most crucial thing. And I really hope that's what Pope Leo was talking about. Was that how do we keep it in its place? Because once we really let that genie out the bottle, that's where all genies go. They don't go back in easily.
That's right.
So, and I think that is one of the most crucial things we need to remember. We're humans first, technology is second. And at that
Yeah.
point, when you forget that, when you forget you're human first, then go without eating for a few days and see how you feel. And
Yes.
then you'll realize you're human first. So
Yeah.
that's what I think. That's what I really think. That's how I'll sum that up.
Good. Well, I happen to, for the record, completely agree with that. I try and not show my bias on these conversations, but it just so happens that that's exactly my view as well. So thank you for joining, Stephen. You've been an absolute pleasure to speak with, and I can't wait to
So
see how the future unfolds. And let's do this again at some time.
it'll be my great pleasure. I really would. Thank you,
Good
sir.
man. Thank you so much.